Okay, good morning everybody. Nikki Burnett here. Today's Taste Life Nutrition Radio, streaming live on kuhsdenver.com, where today we've been stood up. Part of it, right? That's why we do live, because it's always going to keep us on the seat of our pants a little bit. So it's life. It's fine. So I always have to, if something like this, the second time this has happened, I have to sort of figure out what it is that we're going to talk about. And here's what I haven't talked about in a long time is dogs. I think we're going to talk about dogs because they're our family, they're our best friends, and it's so important for us to understand what it looks like to feed them well so they stay with us for as long as they can, because they're never with us long enough anyway. And so I think dogs are my heart. They've been my heart since, I had my first dog, I think, at 2. And it just never stopped. I think it surprised my parents a little bit. The dog thing would, last my entire life, and then horses. And, I think that they thought that would be something that I would grow out of, and it never happened. And so I just keep digging deeper and deeper. And so I'm going to take you with me. Here we go. So, as always, though, we start the show with gratitude. I truly believe gratitude can change the world. I think it is, it's light, and it can bring lightness to us. And I think it's so important to just remember the good. There's a lot of craziness going on. There's always a lot of craziness going on. And when we can remember and really be grateful for the good, it changes us on the inside, and then it helps to change those around us, right? It radiates. I truly believe that's the case. And so if we can take some time in the mornings, take some time in the evenings to whether you meditate or pray, or write or journal on what you're grateful for, I think that it's a game changer. It really is. And so that's something that I do. I do when I wake up in the morning. I can lay in bed and I cozy up and do, say my prayers and my gratitude, and I do it before bed, and then I try to journal it. Not great at journaling yet. It's a practice, right? So we'll get there. Anyway, so what am I grateful for today? I think that I'm just, I really love the sun. I'm so excited to, one of the things that I talk about a lot is when I meditate, the best way for me to meditate is to sit in the sun. And we're at a point right now where the weather's beautiful and the sun is just warm, and it just feels like, just God's hugs just all over me, and it just makes me really happy. Converting my vitamin D, which is good, so it really helps me just to sit and to be still. It gets me away from my computer. So grateful for that. Grateful for growing food. Food prices are on the rise. So I don't grow quite as much as I would like to, but I've got 3 big gardens. We just built another one, our 3rd. So we are growing our food in there, and so it's almost full, not quite. So I need to get that done this weekend. But already eaten off of it, right? We've got some lettuce and some things that are ready to go for us. So that's been a lot of fun. So let's jump in, and instead of talking about emotions and marketing and all of these things, we're going to talk about dogs. So many of us are dog lovers. Like I said, that's been it's been a part of my DNA from probably way before I was ever even a thought in my parents' heads. So what I have learned over the years, let me back up, and all of the dogs that we've had, it's just like anybody else. We've had our dogs who were fed kibble. We were told that that's the best thing to feed them, whether we're told that's the best thing to feed them by marketing, by our vets, by, everybody who says, hey, we know how to take care of your dogs better than you know how to take care of your dogs. I didn't know that that's what we were being told, but it was. One of the ones that I get a lot that really is frustrating for me is Science Diet. And they've actually taken out one of the components, one of the ingredients that was in their food for years. Well, I think they only took it out a few years ago. I've not seen it, but it's BHA, and it is a known carcinogen. It's a preservative, and it's terrible. So if you see it in your food, which it's still in our food, I've seen it in pizzas, pizza, like frozen pizzas. But if you see it in your dog's food, BHA, BHT, you want to take it out, or you want to not give that to them. It's nasty stuff. But we're still told that these diets, these prescription diets, which is maybe one of the best marketing schemes I've seen, is packaging this kibble as a prescription and selling it to vets for them to sell to us. The vets don't know any differently, and which is a shame. There's not a lot of nutrition that they get in vet school, just like there's not a nutrition not a lot of nutrition in med school. But throughout most of my adult life, until I got married and we got our 2 boys, we fed kibble. And I remember I had a little Pomeranian who, just the coolest, meanest little dog. We had him, growing up. I don't remember, I was junior high maybe when we got him. I ended up taking him off to college with me. He lived to be 13. And his name was Cinnamon. Cool little crazy dude. But as he aged, he had so much mucus, poor guy. I don't even know how he breathed. And I just didn't even know what to do. Vets didn't know what to do, didn't know what it was. And I know what it was. It's because we fed him trash food. We fed him science diet. I'm pretty sure that's what we fed him for all of his life, I think, because it's supposed to be the best, right? You feed your dog the best. So anyway, moving into when we found our boys, they were rescues, and I started I started to realize, it was as I started to understand more about human nutrition. It was very early on. I was not even close to being a nutritionist yet. I hadn't even given it a thought. I was in the medical world. I think at that point I was probably selling surgical devices. Maybe I was selling pharmaceuticals. I don't know what it was, but I had started my trajectory toward understanding true health and what that means and what that looks like, and digging into biochemistry and nutrition. But it was just on my own, right? It was just learning and understanding, and trying to teach myself and researching. I didn't know that all of these things are things that I loved doing, but that's how it all started. And so when we got our boys, it was I was like, if I need to eat real food and I need to take care of myself with real good, healthy, organic food, what is this that I'm feeding my dogs? And I knew enough to think, okay, well, it needs to be organic. Well, it needs to have meat and not grains, and it needs to have all of these these things that look really good on the package, on the label of kibble for dogs, right? And so I would scour all of the labels. I would make sure it wasn't always organic, but the first thing was meat, real meat. The first, and there were didn't have grains, and it had some veggies in it, and maybe it had some probiotics in it, all of these things, but it was still kibble. So I'm feeding my dogs this, and then I start thinking, what if there's more? What if they really should be eating something other than kibble? And so I started digging into that. And so I started playing with adding food to my dog's food. Man, I played with all kinds of stuff, from almond butter, and I don't even know. But it's the thing with those boys who, oh my gosh, they were my heart, but they are the boys who I learned on. They taught me so much about health for dogs, for humans, about the heart and about how amazing they are, right? I mean, all my dogs have been really amazing. These 2 boys were my heart, and they allowed me to learn on them and make mistakes, which we all do. We don't know what we don't know until we know it, and we're like, holy smokes, what have I been doing? But we can't go back, which is it can be a hard lesson to learn, right? Whether it's kids, whether it's your animals, we love them and we don't want to make mistakes, but it's going to happen. So if you are watching this and you're feeding your dogs kibble, and as I get into it, you're thinking, what am I doing and how can I keep doing this? yeah, it's, you can't go back, just stop now, right? Or start making small changes. And we'll talk about how we might want to do that. But a couple of things about kibble itself, right? So kibble is the hard food, it's the bagged food. It is, I don't care if you're spending $500 an ounce on this organic, amazing food that is bagged, it's still kibble and it's still toxic. It's still a carcinogen. Because of the high heat that they have, that they cook these at, it essentially eliminates all nutrients from the food. And it creates, there's the fat and the stuff that they put in there, and it's such a high heat that it makes the fat rancid. And so you open up the bag of dog food and you've already got what's potentially a carcinogen in there, one, potentially two carcinogens in that packet of dog food. But then you open it, especially if you have dogs and you get these big, huge bags and they remain opened, they're oxidizing. So that's potentially carcinogenic as well. It's certainly inflammatory. So if you're thinking about the fats that you eat for yourself, a lot of us know the fats that are not healthy. Well, a lot of us know, a lot of us don't know, right? Marketing is amazing. It works really, really well. But things that are unhealthy for us that we don't know, like canola oil, vegetable oil, corn oil. We see these oils, on the shelves all the time, and we eat them and they're inflammatory, potentially carcinogenic, right? So if we are in an inflamed state, the ability for disease to progress is, well, that's why disease progresses, whether it's cancer, whether it's cardiovascular disease, whatever it might be, it all happens in a state of inflammation. And so when we're allowing the inflammatory response to happen at a chronic level, for us, for our dogs, disease is going to find its way. It's just the way that it works. So we have this food that's already got carcinogenic components in it, and think about what they're putting in it. I mean, if we're looking at, Purina or Costco brand or whatever it is, all of these just disgusting foods, look at the ingredients. They are not real food. We want to feed ourselves real food. We want to feed our animals real food. The thing that makes me probably so crazy more than maybe anything else is I don't feed my dogs human food. What does that even mean? Food is food no matter what. So they deserve food. I want you to take to heart that if you are feeding kibble, this is not judgy, it's information, but if you are feeding kibble, it's like feeding your dog McDonald's every single day. There's no nutrient density, it is high in unhealthy fats, it's high in unhealthy carbs, and it is inflammatory and full of chemicals and toxins, right? It's just what it is. And so it's amazing that they're able to live as long as they do, but where our dogs are have the diseases that we have. Why? We eat like crap, we're feeding our dogs like crap, we're gonna get diseases. Again, it's all about inflammation. So I wish I had dog food in front of me, we would just go through the ingredients, but I think it doesn't really matter. I think that if one of the things that you'll hear a lot, probably most people hear now, is if you see ingredients that you can't pronounce, it's probably not an ingredient that you want in your body. So a couple of things, though, is when we look at kibble, or even some of these foods that now are raw foods, so they say, or even cooked real food, right? They're still adding nutrients, and sometimes it's important. But cooking removes nutrients. It kills vitamins. It doesn't kill minerals, but it kills vitamins. Minerals are like eternal, right? They're just always here. But they're adding in nutrients. They're adding in synthetic nutrients. Even if you're seeing amino acids, which is what protein is, it's amino acid chains, and they're essential amino acids, then they're adding in these synthetic amino acids. So, I see in these bags all the time, I see like folic acid or B12, and they're not telling us the form of it. And they're putting in the cheap form, which is a problem and we don't need to go into that, but it's a problem for humans and it's a problem for dogs. So we need real food. Dogs need real food. Animals need real food. Dogs are carnivores. Now I say that, they also can do a small amount of a little bit of vegetable, a little bit of fruit, depending on what it is. But you've got to make sure they're getting a lot of meat. So essentially what dogs need is meat, muscle meat, by 70 to 80%. They need organ meat, specifically beef liver, because beef liver has the proper copper content for them. But they also need other organs as well. So they need half of their organ meat to be beef liver, and the other half, whatever other kind of organ meat you can find. I don't care if it's tripe, I don't care if it's brain, I don't care if it's testicles, kidney, whatever it is, feed it to them because they need it. It's so good for them. And really, we need to be eating it too. We need to be eating liver. It is such a traditional food that is so incredibly nutrient dense, and we don't eat it the way that we should. I don't eat it the way that I should. But we can also supplement it, which is awesome. I have a supplement that it's actually a powder. You can also get it in a pill, but I give it to the dogs. But it's an organ blend powder, and that's all it is all different types of organs all blended up, and I put it on their food. So jumped ahead a little bit there, but it's a great way of getting in all the different types of organs that they need. And if you're able to put it, you can take that organ meat or that organ powder and put it into, say you're making chili. Put it in your chili so you and your family, where you're kind of covering up the flavor, right? Because it's a pretty intense flavor. Put it in your chili, and then you and your family are getting good, healthy organ meats. That's what it's for. This is a human grade supplement, powder supplement. And so I say human grade because when it's, fed to animals, it's supposed to not be fed to people. Well, that makes no sense, right? Why? It makes no sense to not give animals quality food. I mean, it just blows my mind. It's just amazing. So anyway, where were we? Talking about kibble. So the other things to look for, so a lot of times they'll, this one just really cracks me up. They'll put in probiotics. So it's always the last ingredient, the last two ingredients they're putting in, lactobacillus acidophilus, or whatever ingredient they're putting, or whatever probiotic they decide they want to put into this food. Live organisms can't stand heat, right? Even a little bit of heat, they can't stand it. And so the fact that they're putting it in there is a joke. It's just they're increasing the cost because of it, and it's not there. So supplementing with probiotics is a great idea, but the fact that they're putting in kibble and heating at high levels, it's stupid. So don't be fooled by the ingredients, because some of these can look really, really good. I mean, I've been there. I look and I'm like, holy smokes, this is all meat and a little bit of veg and a little bit of fat and some bone, and it's awesome, but it's still kibble. Still, they have to put in those little tiny shaped pieces of trash. They have to be heated at high heat. So I'm trying to think of other things that they put in that can be problematic. But really, if you're in a situation where kibble is what you need to feed, because I do understand that it's less expensive, then look for a high quality food that has minimal ingredients in it. If you can not have the synthetic nutrients that are in it, if you can not worry about the probiotics because you want to put your own in, do that. But then add in a little bit of your own meat, right? So they're getting some good meat. Add in a little bit of your veg and fruit, so they're getting some antioxidants, hopefully, and fish oil. So hopefully these things will help to decrease the inflammatory response, as well as bring in the phytonutrients, the antioxidants, all of these things to help hopefully, at least in part, squash the free radicals that are just being produced due to such an inflammatory food. So, and huge, this is huge. If you are continuing to feed kibble, add water. Kibble, because it's so dry, is so unnatural. and it keeps your dog perpetually dehydrated. So if you're gonna feed kibble, adding in the fruits, adding in the vegetables, smaller amounts, but add them in and add water. Okay, so important to remember to add water. So then if you decide, okay, I want to move away from feeding my dog kibble because I want to keep my dog around. Dogs are supposed to live like 25 to 35 years. And people, come to me and like, can you help me, change my dog's diet, which is super fun for me. They're saying, yeah, my dog is getting old. He's 7. This dog is not supposed to be old at 7. But because of the way that we're feeding them and because of the marketing trash that we've been fed, that's just what we know. And because, we don't, dogs just these days just aren't around that long. This is what we know. This is what we're used to. We think that, yeah, at 10 or 12 or 14, our dogs are supposed to leave us, and they're not. So I also, if you know me, you know I love epigenetics, but this is sort of the negative impact of epigenetics is that, we've been feeding our dogs this trash for so many years now. I mean, generations we've been feeding these dogs this trash. And so epigenetically, we have decreased their lifespan. So they're already going to have, at least the likelihood of that, they're going to have a decreased lifespan because of what their parents, had been fed, or their great or grandparents had been fed, or great grandparents, right? They have such a much shorter lifespan than we do anyway. So then, we have the toxins in the air and the toxins that we are putting on ourselves. We talk about toxins here so often because they're so problematic, but we have to be able to, we've said this a couple of weeks in a row now, we can't control the air that we breathe in a lot of cases, right? We can control our air if we have a filter or something in our home, but then what are we cleaning our home with? There are a lot of things that we have control over and a few things that we don't have control over. So the outside air we don't have control over unless we move. The things that our neighbors spray on their yard, which is really frustrating. So when that happens, if you have a relationship where you're able to educate your neighbors on the pesticides and herbicides that are so toxic to us and to our animals, talk to your neighbors. This is not okay. This stuff is so bad. It's bad for all of us. It's bad for everybody around us when it's sprayed. So, let's see if we can stay away from that. But then if we are spraying it in our yards, we've got our kids who are running around in it in bare feet. We've got our dogs who are running around and rolling in it in their bare feet, right? The dogs have pores, there's sweat out of their feet, right? So that's where they have their pores, is in the bottom of their feet where they're taking everything in. And so, it's really just horrible stuff. Think about the plug-in air fresheners. I mean, just plug-in toxic gases is what it is. So again, for you, for your kiddos, for your animals, take that stuff out. Use natural, healthy essential oils. Use vinegar for your weeds in your yard, or eat your weeds in your yard, right? A lot of them can be eaten. So, lots of diverging topics here. Sorry. Back to food. So if you want to start to switch your dogs out to what is a good, healthy, raw food, then kind of go back to what I just said about if you're going to continue feeding your dogs kibble, then you can continue feeding them kibble, but then start adding in some meat. And raw. They need raw food, right? They're not going to go out and they're not going to go cook their food. Right, so add in some raw chicken, add in some raw beef. If you can add in chunks where they chew it, that's great. Add in some veg, add in some fruit. Add in digestive enzymes. I don't care what you're feeding, I don't care what you're doing, you have to add in digestive enzymes. They don't make their own digestive enzymes the way that we do. So what they would do in the wild is they would kill their prey, they would go for the gut, they would get their digestive enzymes and their probiotics and their already broken down fruits, vegetables, probably maybe fruit, I don't know, from the gut of their prey, and then they would go for the organ meat and the muscle meat, right? So it's a big problem in the way that we feed our animals, whether it's by kibble or if we're feeding them raw, is we're not giving them digestive enzymes so they don't properly break down their food. So they still end up nutrient deficient. Now it's certainly better, but it's so easy to get good just get digestive enzymes, whether it's in a powder or a pill. Break the pill open or just put the pill, it's a small pill, put it in the food, and they will eat it up, and they've got a good digestive enzyme to help break down their food. So that's really key. It really is super important. And so as you're moving your dog away, so some dogs can just be switched over immediately. You know your dog. I'm not one who worries too much about switching dogs over, whether it's quickly or slowly. I tend to switch mine over pretty quickly, but I know my dogs. If you have a dog who's super sensitive to everything and has a sensitive GI and all of these things, then you want to consider probably feeding what you're feeding, and then over a few days, a week, whatever it is that you want to do, then you can switch over to feeding fully raw, but just do it slowly and methodically. Probably what happens a lot, is they're going to leave the kibble and eat the real food. But like, it could go backwards too. I had this happen with one of my dogs. My 50 pounds, she's 55 pounds now, but she's a big girl, and that's all she knew was kibble. She came from, I don't even know where she came from, but we got her from a pound, essentially, right? So, anyway, so I digress. But we got her home, and we fed her the kibble that she had, and then we put some, I think probably chicken in it, literally picked out the chicken and put it on the ground and ate the kibble, because that's what she knew. So it can go either way. It did not take her long, though, to figure out that the chicken was the way to go, or the beef, or whatever we feed. So that's all she eats now. And with my history, so going back to the two boys that we had, they were fed kibble most of their lives, but I did also feed them real food. They were brothers. So the first one passed at 10 of osteosarcoma. The second one at 12 of lymphoma. And so I swore that I would never, ever, ever feed kibble again. It's too heartbreaking, and it's not fair. And so, I told you that these are the two boys who I learned on. I thought, well, if I'm feeding kibble and then also feeding them real food, then that's good enough, right? And sometimes it has to be. Again, I get budgetary stuff. It happens, but it's not fair for them to go through it, and it's not fair for me to go through it. And another piece to that with the osteosarcoma, and this is happening in humans as well, is the fluoride in our water. The fluoride sits in our bone tissue. And it doesn't come out. It's really difficult for it to come out. So that is what is being shown, at least in the most recent, as of a few years ago when I lost Orvis, is that this fluoride that's in our water sits in bone tissue and is causing osteosarcoma. And this is happening in kids. So we have this rise in osteosarcoma in children, and that's one of the things that they're linking it back to. So I have a good filter for my water. It's not a distiller, which I think is the best. So if you have the ability to get a distiller, that's going to be ideal, because a distiller will get out radiation. It'll get out your microplastics. If you can get a full home filtration system and then a distiller on top of that, that's going to be the best. It's ideal. I'm working my way there. But right now I have a really good filter that I give to us and then I give to the dogs. So let's see. So once you start to transition over to full raw diet, you want to make sure that you get an app that's a raw feeding app, so you can measure. The one that I have, I think it's not there anymore. It still works on my phone, but nobody's ever able to find it. So I'm not going to say what it is, because if you're not able to find it, it doesn't help. But what you want to find an app that will give you good ratios and the amount to feed. So the app that I use, I can put in their weight. I can put in whether I feed once or twice a day. I feed once a day. Some people want to feed twice a day, and some people need to feed more than that. If you have a puppy, you got to feed at least twice a day, because the dog's getting huge amounts of food for growth, but they need to be split, or you're going to have a puppy wandering around with a huge belly all the time because it's full of food. You can't do that. So I remember when we got our little one, she was eating, and she was, we got her at, I don't know, 15 pounds or something, whatever it was, but she was eating almost as much at 4 months old as my 55-pound was eating at 5 or 6 years old, whatever she is. So it's a huge difference in food. So you want to make sure that you have an app that helps you understand how much your dog needs to eat at specific ages and for weight. Now, that's a starting point, right? So what I tend to do with my dogs is I watch their ribs. And if their ribs show too much, I know I need to up their food a little bit. If I don't see any ribs at all, you want to see these, back ribs, these back 2 ribs or 3 ribs, and then you want to be able to feel their ribs. If that's not happening, then you're feeding too much. So then we'll decrease it a little bit. So that's really the gauge as far as I'm concerned. A little bit leaner is good, which is why we like to see those ribs. Just easier on the body. A little bit leaner is good I think it's good for everybody. But everybody's made differently. Our bodies are made differently. Dogs' bodies are made differently. I have one who is more, she looks like she's more Shiba Inu, so she's thicker. She's got a thicker coat. She's just kind of built thicker. So I don't really see her ribs, but I can feel them for sure. So you just gotta just feel them to make sure that they're there and adjust accordingly. So get a good app that can help you with that, and a good app is going to give you the muscle meat, it's going to give you the bone, and it's going to give you the liver, and it's going to give you other organ meats or offal. So that's the one that I have, gives those 4 things. It does not include vegetables or fruit or any of that stuff. I added on top of that. So, but it gives you good ratios for their weight, their age, how often you feed them, to understand what they need to be getting. So it's important to understand what that looks like too, because knowing what they're supposed to have, they're supposed to have mostly muscle meat. All right, then they have to have that the organ meat, both the liver and the offal and the other types of organ meat. They also have to have bone. This scares a lot of people. I get it. It used to scare me too. But we have to respect what bones are and what they can do, because they can be hard on the body if we don't do it properly. So with bone, you never ever feed cooked bone, ever. You remember back at, however, I don't know, something I just in my head remember is seeing, I think maybe my grandpa dumping bacon grease on the dog's kibble. I did that too. I mean, when, again, learning on my boys, I was like, oh, it's bacon, it's healthy, it's fat, they need it, let's put it on their kibble. I did it. No, it's really a problem. So dogs do not break down cooked fat well. Too hard on their pancreas, the likelihood of it creating pancreatitis is pretty high. So if you decide you want to cook their food, it's got to be really low in fat. But dogs must have fat. They're not low-fat animals. They need fat, but it cannot be cooked. So let's see. Moving on to the bone. So never cooked bone and never large bones. And I say, for actual ingestion, you never want to do large bones. You do want to do marrow bones for chewing on and getting the marrow out. The marrow is super rich. You might want to start them slowly on that. But that's, again, really nutrient dense. And so I'll order, the big marrow bones. They're already chopped, so I can give them to them, but I'll freeze them, and then I'll give them to them, as often as I can get them. But once a week or so, we've got bones all over our yard from feeding the dogs our marrow bones. But it's great on the teeth. It's really, really good for them. When it comes though to ingesting bone, again, it depends on your dog. There are some people, and I did this with my boys, where you can give whole thigh, whole chicken drumstick, whole chicken feet, whole chicken wings and they will chew them. They'll chew them well, and then eat them, and it's fine. Their GI is such that it's super acidic, so it breaks down all of that stuff. And so bones have the proper mineral balance that dogs are supposed to have. With that being said, I did that for my boys. I don't do that for my girls. They wolf their food down. They eat fast, and so what I do is I get a big butcher knife and I chop the bone, and I'll chop it smaller for my smaller dogs and bigger for my bigger dogs. So they're still able to chew, and they do chew, but I'm very careful of the bones. Now, chicken bones are softer bones. It doesn't mean they're soft, but they're softer bones, and so those are the bones that my girls get. If you're not comfortable with that, it's fine. I totally get it. But you can do eggshells. Eggshells are interesting because although they have a good mineral content, the ratio is not ideal for dogs. But at least they're getting it, right? So you can take an egg. You can give them an egg. You can crumble up the eggshell in their food and then just give it to them. The great thing about that too is the eggshell membrane. Now, that eggshell membrane is full of hyaluronic acid, which is going to be good for their skin and for you too, right? For your skin, for your joints. It's great stuff. So it's, again, goes back to, really cool nutrient density and using all parts of the egg. For me, what I do is I will give eggshell, but it kind of depends. If I'm feeding beef where there's no bone, then I tend to give the eggshell. If I'm feeding chicken that does have bone in it, I'm chopping up the bone, chopping up the chicken, and call me crazy, but I will actually peel out the membrane and feed them the membrane, and then I'll take the eggshell and I'll put it in my garden. So I don't think they need both the bone and the eggshell. Some people may do that, and that's fine, but I don't. Usually, there are times, right? But I don't usually. So think about that, but those are two good ways of getting minerals into their diets that they need, right? So it's not just about calcium. It's not just about whatever other mineral. They have to have the proper ratio of all of the different types of minerals and trace minerals that are beneficial for their body, just like with us, right? I know that we're told all the time, just go eat your calcium, just go take your calcium supplement. That's a huge problem. These minerals work synergistically. They work well together. Other minerals, other nutrients tell calcium where to go. It's like, okay, you got to go to the bone, and if they don't have that, then what's it going to do? Potentially sit in muscle tissue, brain tissue, heart tissue, cardiovascular tissue, breast tissue, kidney tissue, you name it, right? So it's got to know where to go and what to do. So this is why whole foods are the best for all of us. Supplementation may need to happen, but whole foods are always the best. So let's see, we have talked about meat, organ, bone. There are some, if you can find bone meal, that's great, but you've got to be so careful with it because bone meal tends to be high in fluoride, which is crazy. And I don't know if it's due to the processing. I don't know if it's due to the fluoride that is in water that is getting stuck in, animal bones, and then we're feeding it to our dogs. I'm not sure. I don't really know. But we've just got to be really, really careful. So if you have someone who who makes bone meal, or you have a trusted source that makes bone meal, or if you have a butcher that has bone powder. So bone powder is the shavings that come off when they're butchering and cutting up their animals. You can get bone powder, super cool stuff, right? So then it's already in tiny little sandy pieces, and you can just feed that to your dog. So I love that. I think that's such a good idea, especially when we're not comfortable feeding our dogs bones. And the way that I feed my dogs, chopping, it is an extra step. It's just the way that it is. But it still only takes 10, 15 minutes for me to, make my dog's food if I'm starting from scratch. Sometimes we'll just chop it all up, and that makes it really, really easy, right? So sort of a prepping situation. But, 10, 15 minutes to feed 3, medium and fairly large sized dogs a good, healthy, real diet. You could also, if you just do it, each day like I do, if you want to feed twice a day, you just cut everything up and make your meal for that day, and then you feed morning and evening or whenever you want to feed. So, okay, so moving on to sort of the additional things that we can add. There's a lot of really bad information out there when it comes to what we can and can't feed our dogs. We can feed our dogs most everything, but there are a handful of things that we should not feed. And a lot of us know this, and so it's great that this is something that's becoming more and more known, but things like grapes, raisins, onions, macadamia nuts, chocolate, those 5 things. I don't think I'm missing anything, but I think it's those 5 things that are the really important, hell no, keep them away from your dog kind of stuff. I don't know what it is about macadamia nuts. There's something in them. The other nuts they can eat pretty well, but something about macadamia nuts that they're not supposed to have. So let's see, beyond that, if you're feeding fruit and veg, what I do is I put it in a food processor. So remember, they don't break down their food well because they don't have the digestive enzymes that we have. So breaking it down for them in a food processor, so on a typical day, I'll look at what I have in my fridge. So they're getting variety like I would get variety. So I will put in a food processor, say I have Brussels sprouts and I have frozen blueberries and I have a squash. I'll put all that in a food processor, and then I'll give 2 spoonfuls to my big dog and 1 spoonful to my smaller dogs. They're 30 pounds. And so that's what I do for them, and then I try to make enough where I've got it for 2 or 3 or 4 days. Or you can make it and you can freeze it, right? Freeze it in little glass bowls or something like that. Then you have it, and it saves you a little bit of time. So they can eat all kinds of stuff. They can have garlic. Garlic is healthy for them. You don't want to feed them large amounts of garlic. So I might add into my food processor a little bit, 3 cloves of garlic. If 3 dogs, 3 cloves of garlic. So I'll do that. I might add in ginger. So whether it's fresh ginger or a powdered ginger, I will do that because that's great for their joints. A sea vegetable like kelp, because of the iodine for their thyroid. Want to make sure we're doing that. If you're not feeding pasture-raised animals, which I know is really expensive, I don't do that. I would love to, but I don't. I'm feeding extra fish oil, so they're getting good, healthy omega-3 fatty acids to hopefully to help balance out the omega-6s that they're getting. I do that for us as well. Of course, I try to feed us pasture-raised animals. Let's see, what else do I feed? I'll do mushrooms, so I'll feed them whether it's food mushrooms or a mushroom supplement for medicinal mushrooms. I'll do that. There might be times that I will do a multivitamin. I'll do it periodically, but I don't do it all the time. I don't think it's necessary to do it all the time. We do want to make sure that we're feeding a well-balanced diet. And so if you know, there is Karen Becker, Dr. Karen Becker. She's a functional vet. I am so grateful for her and her knowledge and her teachings and her trainings. She has lots of really great recipes, so you can, so you're not just listening to this, but just doing it on your own willy-nilly. But you can go to her recipes and find out what you need to where you've got good proper ratios for your dog and you're feeding them a fully balanced diet, so there's nothing missing. Really important. Okay. I'm going to wrap up a little bit early today. I want to see if there's anything that I'm missing. I'll add olive oil. Sometimes I might add a little bit of butter, grass-fed butter. I might add a little coconut oil. I think that's it. I do binders. So if you hear me talking about binders, they pull out toxins out of the body. So I'll do binders for me. I do binders for the dogs. What else? Herbs. So cilantro, parsley. We'll do those. The rosemary. Do those things regularly. Those are really great. Cilantro and parsley also are natural binders, so it's great to add those in. They're not strong binders. but they will chelate out toxins. So that's why I do a binder. You know, I don't know what my neighbors are, I know what most of my neighbors are doing, but I do have neighbors, I don't know if they're putting, you know, pesticides and herbicides in their yard. So I want to have these binders so for the toxins that they're breathing in their environment, or the toxins that they may take in, you know, as we're going for a walk and they're rolling around in other people's yards. You know, I want them to roll around and have a good time, but I'm gonna try to pull out any toxins that I can. You know, let's see, I'll do good mitochondrial support. There's a product I like called BCATP that's a mitochondrial support. I'll periodically do kidney liver support for them as a supplement. So I kind of do for them like I do for me. It's sort of a maintenance pulsing of supplements. So I'll do certain supplements for a while, and then I'll back off for a while. Or I'll do them every few days, and I'll stop for a day or two or something like that. So I'm pulsing their supplements. Trying to think. I think that's it. So you can get some mineral powders that might be a good replacement for the bone if that's not what you're comfortable with. But I don't know if they're complete. I have one that I still have sitting in my supplement cabinet because I don't think it's complete. So I just want to make sure that, you know, I mean, as much as we can feed ourselves and our animals real food, and get, you know, everything that they need out of that, the better that we can do. But they do need some additional things periodically. So I hope that I didn't trick you too much by the title, and I think you were going to be talking about, you know, marketing and you know, emotional marketing today. But you know, it was a good opportunity for me to talk about one of the things that I really love to talk about and I love to teach about, which is feeding our animals real food. You know, real quickie about cats. Cats are true carnivores. They need meat. I mean, that's basically what they need. So feeding them kibble is also super toxic. I'm seeing that we're feeding our cats these foods that are not natural to them, and so it's a problem. Cats certainly don't do carbohydrates well. Dogs don't do carbohydrates well. Do not feed your dogs rice, right? So we hear, okay, my dog's got an upset tummy, I'm going to feed him, you know, a white fish and a white rice. No, that is not good. It's not okay. They don't need grains. They don't need oatmeal. They don't need corn. None of those things, okay? So it's pretty basic stuff. Meat, fat, organ, a little veg, a little fruit, and you might need to do a little supplementation. That's basically it, okay? So let me know, of course, if you have any questions, if there's anything that you need. I'm always here and happy to be a resource. That's my ultimate goal, is to be a resource for whoever needs it. So you can find me, tastelifenutrition.com, and on all of the social medias, it's Taste Life Nutrition. Reach out if you are back to the human world, if you are a woman or a couple looking to plan for pregnancy, right? Take the time to plan for pregnancy. This is what I really, really love to do, because there's so much that we can do to really optimize our health, to optimize conception, to optimize pregnancy, and to optimize the health of our children, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, on for hundreds of years. It truly makes a difference. So would love to chat with you about that or anything else. You can fill out a free assessment on the website if you have questions, and then we'll chat with you about what I find, and we'll go from there. So anyway, hope you all have a wonderful Thursday and a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the beautiful weather. Hopefully you're having the weather we're having. It's so beautiful. And we'll see you next week. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.